Some cities are believed to be built only of stone and soil. In reality, they are knots that obstruct the flow of history. A blind knot that remained undeciphered for 1,000 years, leaving the hands of all who tried covered in blood. Constantinople. Everyone claimed his dream was impossible. They said it defied the laws of nature. But history is nothing more than a diary written by those who chase the impossible. So, how did a 21-year-old youth decipher the most sophisticated defense architecture in the world? Did those walls, which stood for millennia, surrender to gunpowder alone, or to superior mathematics and intellect? Did the ships truly walk on land? Or was it the greatest psychological operation history has ever witnessed? And most importantly, how did a state reborn from its ashes in 1402 dare to become the new master of the world in just 50 years? Today, we will witness how a conquest was crafted, step by step, not just with the sword, but with the pen, with engineering, and with a subtle intelligence and sinister patience. We will decipher how the system repaired itself after the great collapse at Ankara, and how that fearless youth, known as the Conqueror, redesigned the world. I am the Chronographer. If you've subscribed and liked the video, let's begin. After the cataclysm of 1402, the world believed the Ottomans could never return to their former glory. But that 50-year period of silent waiting was, in fact, the most magnificent strategic retreat in history. As the system recalibrated its broken pieces, it was simultaneously cultivating a perfect commander. The 19-year-old youth who ascended the throne was far more than a soldier. He was an intellectual fluent in 6 languages, an engineer, and above all, an analyst who knew every siege failure in history, from Alexander the Great to Julius Caesar, by heart. When Mehmed inherited the relatively stable state left by his father, Murad II, he knew that the strategic landscape before him was nothing but a systemic error. To him, Constantinople was not merely a holy objective, it was a geographical glitch between the two sides of the empire. A parasite disrupting the flow of data between Anatolia and Rumelia, attempting to crash the system from within at every opportunity. Mehmed's plan was simple: remove this parasite and reboot the empire from a single center, with absolute power. So why had these massive walls remained unbreakable? Mehmed realized that every army that had crashed against these fortifications for a millennium had made the same mistake. They tried to force the gates of the new world with the tactics of the old. He chose a different path. Before he could defeat the walls, he had to defeat physics. No one was yet aware of the situation, but in the foundries of Edirne, the language of gunpowder and iron was being rewritten. Mehmed had focused on the silent force that would replace massive armies, engineering. Details were his ultimate weapon, and he had already begun calculating every single step. 1,444. While the system was still not fully stabilized, a massive crusader wind was rising from the west. A 12-year-old child occupied the throne, and the wolves of the old world were waiting to sideline this young operator. His father, Murad II, had not shown his usual resistance and had stepped aside, leaving the management of the system to his son. But the crisis was imminent. The viziers were in panic. The system was returning errors. Murad II was not responding to the calls for his return. In that moment, that 12-year-old intellect drafted the shortest, yet most potent, logic manipulation in history. This was not a plea. It was an algorithmic override. If you are the Sultan, come and lead your armies. If I am the Sultan, I command you. Come and lead our armies. These words did not just summon a father to the battlefield. They branded Mehmed's concept of absolute authority. Although the system was temporarily handed back to the old operator, Murad II, that day, everyone knew the code had been rewritten. The new operator possessed the will to send even his own father to the front lines by his command. The Crusaders were crushed at Varna. The system had untied its ropes. But for Mehmed, this was only a postponement. He realized one more thing that day. If he truly wanted to command this machine, he needed a victory so monumental that no one could challenge it. The final operation, 1451. When Mehmed ascended the throne for the second time, the world believed he was still that 12-year-old amateur. Byzantine Emperor Constantine, seeking to test the young Sultan, played an old trump card, demanding tribute over the Ottoman prince, Orhan. This was a ping test directed at the system's most sensitive point. Mehmed's response was an unexpected silence. This was not acceptance. It was a massive period of silence before the storm. Mehmed decided to complete the electrical circuit left unfinished by his grandfather, Bayezid. At the narrowest point of the Bosphorus, he would build not just a tower, but a chokehold. Its name, Rumeli Hisara. But for Mehmed, the name was clearer. Boas Kessin, the throat cutter. When Byzantine envoys protested, claiming the construction violated treaties, Mehmed delivered his famous cold ultimatum. The tongues of those who dare to question what I intend to do on these lands shall be torn out. The construction was an engineering miracle. Only 4 months, Mehmed had managed the system so effectively that he assigned each pasha the responsibility of finishing a tower, turning competition into a fuel for efficiency. The fortress's architecture, which resembled the name Muhammad in Kufic script when viewed from above, was not just a symbol of faith. It was an indelible seal stamped upon the geography. Now, the data flow from the Black Sea, Byzantium's vital logistical line, was under total Ottoman control. November 1452. A Venetian ship attempted to bypass the new protocols and pass through the Bosphorus. A single cannonball fired from the fortress sent the ship to the bottom in seconds. This was a system warning sent to the rest of the world. The message was clear. Constantinople was now disconnected from the network. The city had been turned into an offline server, isolated from the outside world. The siege had effectively begun that day when that ship hit the seafloor. Mehmed cut off the city's breath before launching the assault. While the Byzantine emperor prayed for a miracle behind the walls, the young sultan was making final preparations in his laboratory in Edirne, because to dismantle those walls, a fortress was not enough. He needed a monster that would push the boundaries of physics. For 1,000 years, the walls of Constantinople had provided an insurmountable response to every siege engine. But in the winter of 1452, the antithesis to this response was being engineered in the foundries of Edirne. When the Hungarian master Urban came before Mehmed after being rejected by the Byzantine emperor, he carried in his pocket not just a plan, but the blueprints for a monster that pushed the boundaries of physics. Mehmed granted Urban more than just gold. He gave him an infinite budget and total engineering freedom. The result? The Shahi, a giant over 8 meters long with a diameter of more than 60 centimeters, capable of launching stone projectiles weighing over half a ton. This was the largest firearm ever constructed. But it wasn't just about scale. Mehmed personally verified the ballistic calculations, the cooling duration of the barrel, the gunpowder mixture ratio, and the angle of impact, everything was solved like a complex mathematics problem. Transporting this massive piece of hardware to the front was even more difficult than casting it. This logistical nightmare, accompanied by 60 oxen and 400 men, reached the walls after a journey of several days. When the defenders of eastern Rome looked beyond the ramparts, what they saw was not just an army, it was an approaching industrial revolution. The medieval chivalric spirit and the discipline of the sword were instantly transformed into ancient relics under the shadow of Urban's colossal cannon. April 6th, 1453. When the first order to fire was given, the sound shook not only the walls, but the old world itself. The shockwave of the explosion could be heard from kilometers away. For the first time, the walls were not just trembling, they were being dismantled down to their atoms. Mehmed had demonstrated that firearms were not a mere support unit, but the main processor of the siege. Now, the prayers behind the walls were left alone against the kinetic energy of gunpowder. Day 15 of the siege. The system entered a deadlock. The massive chain stretched across the mouth of the Golden Horn was blocking not only the ships, but also Mehmed's strategic mind. Byzantium believed the sea was secure. For them, this chain was an impenetrable firewall. But Mehmed was an operator too dynamic to waste time on static solutions. If the door is locked, instead of breaking down the wall, you go over the house. The night of April 21st. In the forests north of Constantinople, the greatest logistical exploit in history was initiated. Mehmed gave an order that no one could even imagine. The time has come to drown the sea in land, and the land in terror. The ships were about to bypass the laws of physics, not just the chains of the Golden Horn. 72 ships. In the darkness of the night, massive and mysterious shadows glided over the hills of Galata. This was not merely a transport operation, it was the heaviest blow struck into the heart of the enemy's psychological defense line. When Mehmed called out to his men, his voice roared like the discharge of his great cannons. "My brave ones, my warriors! Every ship you walk across the land is a dagger plunged into the heart of the infidel. Forward by the will of Allah." When the sun rose, no hope remained for Byzantium. The Golden Horn, which they believed to be offline, was now an Ottoman lake. Mehmed had not just besieged the city, he had redesigned geography itself to match his own vision. Every ship that descended into the harbor that day was one of the final nails driven into the coffin of a 1,000-year-old empire. Day 53. The testing phase is complete. The trials are over. Gazing at the walls from atop his horse, Mehmed whispered that ruthless command, "Strike, then, O artilleryman! Strike, so the heart of the infidel is consumed by the terror of the faithful." This was more than a blow to stone. It was the most ruthless strike ever leveled against an entire era. With the final roar of the Shahi cannon, the 1,000-year-old walls of Constantinople were rendered no more substantial than castles made of sand. The lock was picked, the knot was severed. At 5 o'clock on the morning of May 29th, 1453, the old operating system of the world entered a permanent state of hibernation. Mehmed didn't simply delete an empire, he cleared the debris to re-architect it from the ground up. Rome was gone. Byzantium was no more. On the grand stage of history, only one power, one operator, and one reality remained. Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. This was far from being a mere military victory. As Mehmed gazed at the dome of the Hagia Sophia that day, he was not just a conqueror. He was the chief architect of a new era. The solving of the city triggered an intellectual migration that sparked the Renaissance in Europe. Absolute control over the silk and spice routes pushed Western explorers into unknown oceans, opening the gates to the age of discovery. In short, 1453 was the ultimate reset operation in the database of human history. History has never been a tomb of cold marble. It is a high-performance engine, perpetually running and evolving. As the Chronographer, we simply decipher the hidden blueprints buried within the gears of this machine. Today, you witnessed how a 1,000-year-old chain was shattered and how an empire was dismantled like a complex engineering project. If you seek further strategic depth, you can access our ebook, The Architecture of Conquest, Constantinople, 1453, featuring our full analyses, technical drawings, and the granular details of this massive operation via the link in the description below. To understand the future, we will continue to decode the scripts of the past. See you in the upcoming videos. For now, don't forget to follow us. We will be back with you very soon. Farewell.